Hey folks, we are here for our biotech panel. My name is Nick Wolf. I think I know most of you. Just so you know, we are recording this, so just want to make sure you understand that. We've got a great group of panelists today that are going to enlighten us on the biotech industry. And so we're going to have them go through a little bit about themselves first, and then about their companies, and then we're going to give you an opportunity to ask questions if you'd like. I would like to just quickly introduce the panelists. We have Taylor King, who is an MBA alum of ours. Tyler Park is also an MBA alum. Josh Alcorn is an undergrad, one of our undergrad alums. And then Valerie Avila is also one of our MBA alums. And so they're going to speak to us about the biotech industry. We may or may not go an hour, but feel free to ask questions, and we'll go ahead and get started. So who would like to begin? I can pick.
I'll go for it.
Josh, I appreciate you so much. Thanks.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
All right. So in typical corporate fashion, I have a presentation. Don't go anywhere without them. And then share screen is, where's it located? There it is. All right. Okay, so a little bit about myself. Let me make sure I'm sharing. I'm not sharing yet, am I? Share. All right, you should be seeing the screen. Okay, so born and raised in Southern California, from Temecula, lived in South America, in Washington, D.C. So I'm in a corporate role now, but I haven't been, and that's something I wanted to highlight in my story. And mainly thing I wanted to share personally is that though I've ended up in Thermo Fisher now, lead a global marketing team, which is wonderful. I've had anything but a linear career path. And so since we're here talking about careers, I thought I'd start with my career started actually as a business owner, not making golf t-shirts, Nick, but making surfing t-shirts, which I sold through some local surf shops back in the day. This is pre-e-commerce, pre-internet, and had a blast doing that, but never really found that it was my passion. Went to Point Loma, of course, in my undergrad, and that sent me on a missions trip to South America, which ended up being about 10 years worth of missions work. Working with a lot of nonprofit organizations, both overseas and stateside, making very little money, but having a wonderful time doing it, working for missional organizations, having a great impact. Ended up in DC, where I did my graduate work, worked for some more organizations in DC, which I've listed here. It did some great counseling work with undergrads in college from a faith-based perspective. And then eventually landed at Deloitte through a good friend of mine, in 2013, where I did consulting work, primarily working with life science companies, which is what allowed me to jump over to Thermo and convince them that I could do marketing. They believed me, and I've been there ever since. And what I also wanted to highlight, my first paycheck was when I was 30 years old. So before that, I was just living on donations that people gave to the organizations that I served. I made very little money, did not really care about that. It was about other kinds of things. But the point there is really not about the paycheck. It's just that things don't always progress in a linear fashion. You can still find things that you're passionate about, find success, whatever that it means for you, regardless if you follow a traditional path or not. And one of the stories that I have about that is that it really, the people around you, you never really know how they'll have an impact in your life. So one of the individuals that we helped in one of the ministries that I was a part of, his father was a senior partner at Deloitte. And so when he knew that I was interested in moving out of a missions work and into a professional setting, he made it very easy for me to move over to a great organization like that. So anyway, that's a little bit of my story. I have a couple of little quotes here that I like that remind me of what really matters for me in my career. And so one thing that I would highlight to you guys is career advancement is not about performance. That's, I think, common misperception is if you're really good, you just get promoted. Maybe that happens in some cases, but I think ultimately what it's really about is assuming greater levels of responsibility. And if you really want that in your own life and in your professional setting, it requires self-discipline. It requires persistence and perseverance. It requires taking risk, and it requires willing to grow. to take in feedback, criticism, et cetera, and make some changes in your life. So I'm at Thermo Fisher now. Wait, that's my family. Okay, so Thermo Fisher is a life science company. If you're not a biotech person, this is not going to look familiar to you, but this is what a lab looks like that's doing COVID work. We support all these customers. Most of the stuff that you see here is somehow related to Thermo Fisher. So we're not the front end, what everybody sees in terms of human health, but we provide a lot of the, what looks like boring stuff that does all the work behind here. So a lot of the tubes and caps and big instruments on the walls and things like that. Here's another shot of a lot of people. These are running COVID tests. So this is what a lab looks like when they're running COVID tests. A lot of these instrumentation here is what we do. It's a large organization. You may not have heard of it unless you're in a biotech industry. We're a Fortune 100 company, $40 billion in revenue, 100,000 plus global employees, with a major site in Carlsbad, so a great North County employer. And we have all kinds of functions. So just because it's a science company doesn't mean it's all scientists. So we've got legal teams, we've got marketing teams, which I'm a part of. We've got business and strategy, we've got analytics, we've got e-commerce engines, and we got social media. We got all those kinds of different opportunities within our company, product management, et cetera. And so it's not just scientists. And a lot of the people that do those jobs, they're really good at their jobs because they're not a scientist. And so even though it's considered a biotech, it doesn't mean it's just for scientific companies. I do global marketing, which means I work with regional colleagues all over the world to make sure that the products that you see here are marketed in their regions, and that everything that we create, from videos to brochures to events where we're talking about these products, are consistent across the globe. That's me and my role at Thermo. And I'll popcorn to whoever you want next, Nick.
Well, really quick, Josh. Does anybody, I want to just really quickly, while fresh in mind, does anybody have any questions just specifically even to Josh? I wanted to touch on a couple of things just if nobody else did. So Josh, so why Thermo Fisher though? Because you do have opportunities to go into other biotechs. So what is it about that organization?
I wanted a large company. There's a lot of internal mobility that you can achieve, a lot of career growth you can have in a large organization. So typically there's a lot of different functions represented. There's a lot of different opportunities for career growth. So that's one of the benefits of being at a large organization. Also is really close to my house. So at the time that I made that transition, we just had our second child. So some of the what you'll find in your career, sometimes what really matters to you are things very specific to your career, your job, what you do, how much you make, your promotion, et cetera. And other times it's on the life side. So for me at that point in my life, Nick, it was, I needed to be near my family. I need to be able to get home from work easily. I need to be able to support my kids and my wife. So being close to home was the number 2 on my list. Gotcha.
Thanks for that. One other question. So obviously Thermo hasn't always been COVID, because COVID's not new, but this COVID is new. So what other products are specifically related here to Carlsbad?
So most of the stuff that we do in Carlsbad, it supports all kinds of research. So taking COVID out of it, all kinds of cancer research, infectious disease research, all forensics. We have products that police departments use to identify, to do forensic analysis in DNA. But a lot of what I particularly support is like DNA and RNA sequencing and things like that. So nothing really specific directly to the community of North County per se. But as you know, it's a massive biotech hub in San Diego. And so a lot of those labs, be it research labs at UCSD, Salk Institute, or the biotechs themselves, some of them represented here, a lot of the products that enable their work are stuff that we sell. So we're back behind the scenes, kind of providing a lot of the lab materials that they'll use to actually do the work that leads to the breakthroughs. So Thermo's really not the company that you're going to look to like a Hologic or others to bring the breakthroughs to the market, but we're going to be behind the scenes providing all the products that those companies are using to bring better medical devices, better therapeutics to the marketplace.
Okay, awesome, wonderful. Any quick questions?
It's kind, you think that people know Hologic, but I think
I love it. No.
Everyone's on
They
the Super
do.
Bowl.
It's okay.
Yeah,
they were
right.
on the Super. They were. You got a Super Bowl commercial.
Yeah.
Well, Tyler, You spoke up, so
Yeah, I guess.
do you mind going next?
That's a hard act to follow, by the way. I did not put together a who I am slide, so
That's okay.
I will try to do the best I can
You'll
and
be
also
fine.
share my screen. I completely agree with you, Josh, in terms of your sentiments and kind of your vision in terms of your career and how you incorporate your life first. I am a firm believer that I'm very lucky to be where I am in terms of my career, and it's all really started with Point Loma. So I guess before I get into the company, I'll share a little bit of myself. Hi, everyone. I'm Tyler Park. I'm the Director of Laboratory Marketing here at Hologic. I'll explain why my title specifically says Global Laboratory Marketing in a second. But so I actually started my career. I went to undergrad at UC Davis with the econ and stats major. As Josh mentioned, I'm not, or as he spoke about, I'm not a scientist as well. And I came from more of a sales background. So I started my career in recruiting, actually. And then move over into sales for engineering services at a company called Aerotech. But I realized I really wanted to get into a marketing role, specifically a product manager role. So I had a friend that was actually in the program at Point Loma, and so I took a shot and went for it. So was fortunate to interview with, at the time, Jose, get into the MBA program, and from there it's really changed my career trajectory. Where after I got my MBA, I got my first job as a product manager for international marketing at Quidel. Obviously, they're very big now because of COVID. They do the rapid antigen tests. They're also based here in San Diego. And I had a tremendous opportunity to work there, learned a ton in terms of international markets and how you compete overseas, which is a completely different dynamic, as Josh, I'm sure, and everybody who does any kind of global types of commercial marketing is aware of. Every market is just so unique in its own right, and it's really fun, right? So if you're into that, I highly recommend it. And then I had an opportunity to join Hologic, which I joined same reason. It's a bigger company. Bigger company allows you to do different things in terms of how they operate their business and how they go about building, commercializing different products out there. So again, as Josh mentioned, we get supplies from Thermo Fisher as well, and in some ways you guys are our suppliers. In some ways you are our competitors as well. So Hologic as a whole is a women's health company, and our slogan is a single purpose, a common passion, a lifelong promise. Purpose, passion, promise is everything that we are into. That encompasses everything that we do. We are traditionally, again, as I mentioned, a women's health company, and I'll describe a little bit of my particular business unit. If you look at by the numbers, we aren't as big as Thermo Fisher, but we're getting there. We're actually over 6,000 employees globally. We have all types of, whether it's PhD, actual clinicians, OBGYNs, physicians, a lot of women leaders, of course, engineers from mechanical, electrical, software, you name it. We have the entire gamut here at Hologic. We have several different divisions that really is broken down into 3 different divisions. So I'll start, I guess, on the right-hand side. You have skeletal health, which is one division, and then you have breast, which is our mammography division, which is out of Boston, Massachusetts. Body composition is also kind of roped into skeletal health. And then everything you see on the left-hand side, cervical health and sexual health, gynecological health, that's diagnostics, mainly diagnostics. We certainly have some surgical business there, but is the diagnostics division. So I am located here in San Diego, which formerly used to be called GenProbe. So GenProbe was acquired by Hologic in 2012. And so when you think about our products, we are in the world of molecular diagnostics. So we are looking we're looking for a specific strand of DNA or RNA. We're looking to amplify that sequence, thanks to companies like Thermo that we get, and create tests basically that look for these targets that you can see here listed, from chlamydia, gonorrhea, trichomonas. Like I mentioned, we are the leaders in STI testing. I know it's sometimes a taboo topic, but that's the world that I live in. My wife says that I sling pap smears for a living as a joke, but it's serious. So that's actually what I do. And so we are a more automated system where we have these Panther instruments. They're kind of the size of, maybe a small refrigerator that you load samples onto, you load tests onto. Of course, with COVID right now, we supply a ton of COVID tests globally. But our traditional business is what we call our women's health business. So really the 6 tests that you see there at the top If you exclude COVID from a revenue standpoint, we do about $975 million of business every single year. About 730 million of that is women's health products that I'm responsible for, which is not using that to gloat. I'm using that more because for you guys that are looking into doing this type of work, there are different stresses that come along with the job that are all kinds, right? And this is a different kind of stress where it's great because we get the biggest budgets to do all these wonderful things like a Super Bowl commercial and spend, $15 million doing that. But on the other hand, when you're not delivering, you get a lot of questions as to, hey, what's going on, so on and so forth. So this is the Panther instrument that you see here. Again, like I mentioned, we do SARS-CoV-2 testing as well as women's health. And then Panther Fusion is our DNA platform where we detect for DNA rather than RNA, and has a separate menu in terms of our respiratory assays, and we are looking into other targets, especially with the antibiotic resistance that's happening out in the globe, and we want to do some sequencing, which is, again, where we leverage our supplier partners like Thermo Fisher to help us out there. So that's kind of our product in a nutshell. In terms of what I do, I mentioned my title is laboratory marketing. We are unique here where we have lab sales, and we also have physician sales. So from a lab sales standpoint, it's more of your traditional medical device sales. We are selling into the Quest and LabCorp of the world. They're our biggest customers, and say, hey, please buy our Panther system, et cetera. We also have a healthcare provider channel. They are what we call diagnostic specialists. So if you're looking to get into an entry-level sales job, that's what they do. And they go out to physicians and educate them on guidelines, and to help promote testing. And what that does is, of course, it's important for the patient because better testing provides better diagnosis and better preventative care. And then, of course, it provides better HEDIS measures and is all around better for the healthcare system. So as our senior vice president, my senior vice president, Keith Ganner, says, the best marketers help close the biggest deals. I feel like that's a motto that we live by here. And it all starts with market development. So we're looking into different targets that are out there. Like several years ago, I was part of our microplastic genitalium project. There wasn't a molecular test for that. It mimics the symptoms of chlamydia gonorrhea. We need to have a NAT test. So we work with researchers, key researchers across the globe to find out what exact strand we should target, what kind of studies we should develop to create this market. And then it kind of goes into the product pipeline, right? I put together a business case, get that business case approved so that we can actually start developing a test, which then goes into all of the core team meetings and making sure that clinical, regulatory, R&D, everybody's aligned as we march towards FDA approval. And of course, as we get close to that, then there's all the launch things that you have to do as a marketer, right? You have to put together the brochures, the messaging, the pricing strategy, training, everything that goes into a product launch. And then once you have FDA approval, then I am seen as the subject matter expert for those products. So I get called frequently to travel. Last week I was in Toronto, visiting about 6 different labs out there, talking to them about our vaginitis portfolio, to again, kind of go into the quote there to close some of the biggest deals. We of course have the life cycle management. So every product's in a different stage of their life, and we have to sometimes end of life products or make sure that the demand, if we're saying, hey, we're going to sell 100 tests, we got to make sure they build 100 tests, which is not as easy as you may think. And then creating messaging that's always in line with the healthcare provider channel. As I mentioned, my title is laboratory marketing. We have a healthcare provider marketing channel, again, which sells to the physician, and it all has to align with a strong clinical story. What difference does this make to the patient? And does it empower their life? Does it create for them a better treatment outcome because of the diagnosis that we are providing? Because if it doesn't do that, obviously, if we start doing all these things, it looks self-serving, right? So that's a lot of what we do. And I will pause here for any questions. Sorry if I went over time. Now I'm supposed to popcorn it.
Yeah, any questions? I always forget to unmute myself. Sorry, folks. I do, Tyler, I have another same question. Was it something specific about Hologic that drew you to that company? So
so it's really 2 things. I would say, obviously the products, which I think anybody can talk about. There are things that, without getting into the details, but when I think about what we stand for and what we do, I take great pride in what we do. And if I were to think about, any of the women in my life that are impacted, to really make sure that they are getting Hologic products. And of course I'm biased, but there are like specific reasons, like our Optimate HPV assay, because it detects RNA rather than DNA. You're reducing the number of false positives and reducing unnecessary colposcopies and things like that. So there's all those things. And, we kind of joked about the Super Bowl commercial, but the reason why we get to do those things is because we have such strong market share in the majority of our markets, that it's that concept of a rising tide lifts all ships. So we get to do campaigns, projects that lift the overall healthcare system, and we benefit by that. If 100 more women go visit the doctor, 90 of those tests are going to come our way, and that allows us to differentiate ourselves and partner differently with our laboratories and a lot of the societies that we work with. That's awesome. And then, of course, I think anybody can attest to this as well, as people, right? But the people that I get to work with, we love our jobs here. Everybody does, and there's a lot of work that goes into it, and you spend a lot of time sometimes, especially when we're traveling, more time on the road, and you might as well do it with the people that you enjoy to be with. So
yeah, appreciate that, Tyler. Hey, Didi, I got your question in the chat. I'm going to hold that until so everybody has a chance to respond to that. So I will ask. That'll be my first question out of the box. Okay.
Awesome.
Larry, do you want to go next, or Taylor? Do we have a hand?
I can go next.
Awesome. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Valeria Avila. I'm originally from Calexico, California, and I moved to San Diego in 2008 for school. As mentioned earlier, I was part of the Point Loma MBA class of 2021, and my concentration was entrepreneurship and innovation. I also have a bachelor's in international business from San Diego State, and just like Tyler and the rest of the people who have presented, I also do not come from a science background, and my career is a little all over the place. So basically, after college, I started working for a market research firm in San Diego that focused on the Hispanic market in the US. And here I was focused in conducting online research projects, such as focus groups and blog moderation. After that, I made a move and started working in the buy-in department of PriceSmart. For those who are not familiar with the company, they're kind of like a Costco, but their stores are in Central America and the Caribbean, and it's headquartered in San Diego. In this company, I held 3 different positions. I was inventory coordinator, inventory analyst, and assistant buyer, which is how I became involved in the supply chain part of the business. And during my time at PriceSmart is where I started my journey at Point Loma. And one of the things that really pushed me to look for a new job is like the idea of finding a career that was rewarding and fulfill my purpose of giving back through my career. And that's basically how I ended up working for Alumni. Right now, I'm currently working there as an MPI buyer and planner, and I'm fairly new. This is my 4th week, so I might not be able to give you as many details as the rest of the team about the company. But I mean, the company's mission is to improve human health by unlocking the power of the genome. And basically in my position right now, I'm still learning a lot about the biotech industry and the products and services that the company provides that impact human health. And my job function basically is supporting manufacturing by ordering parts and commodities for a variety of projects and the products and services that the company sells.
So you came directly from PriceSmart to, which it's funny that PriceSmart is right there in PB, and we don't have a PriceSmart here in San Diego.
Yeah.
Right. But you went directly from PriceSmart to Illumina, correct?
Yeah. So yeah.
Why? Why'd you make that change?
So I was in supply chain, but I felt like whenever we were in class and we talked about, having like a purposeful career, like even though I was buying things like in the Christmas department, like yes, did buying Christmas trees for Costco bring joy to people? Yes, but I felt like it would be so much more rewarding to work in an industry that like is trying to improve health. And that's how I ended up there. I honestly applied and not thinking that I would get in, just because I have no idea of the science background. to this day, they're talking about projects and things, and it's just like over my head science. And I'm like, I have no idea what any of these people were talking about, but just my experience in the supply chain industry was it's a skill that's transferable. So I think that's really important, you know, just like bringing something that you know into the biotech industry. And I feel like stuff that I've learned, even though we are not buying the same parts, I was able to contribute to the team. And that's something that they keep bringing up, like, hey, you know, a lot about like global import and all these things that have really helped the team at this point.
Awesome. So even without the biotech experience, you were able to be a value add right off the bat.
Exactly.
Love it. Well, I appreciate you being here. Taylor.
I'll just comment too, by the way.
Oh, good. I love it, Tyler. Yeah.
No, I don't have a question, more so a comment. Just hats off to you for, and people like you. We certainly have the same types of roles here at Hologic, and through the pandemic, I mean, it was a crazy thing to go through, and I feel like you guys are like the unsung heroes of you know, moving mountains to get, you know, parts, products, all that kind of stuff. So hats off to you for the crazy, I'm sure, you know, the past 2 years that you had.
Yeah, definitely. COVID has brought a lot of things for supply chain, which I think that have made that career path very important, because it's something that every single industry is struggling with.
Agreed.
Perfect. Thanks for that comment, Tyler. Appreciate that. Taylor, jump on in. Taylor and I, by the way, we're in the same cohort. So yeah.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
She was the smart one in the cohort.
I don't know about that, but
yeah, I do.
I graduated.
Yeah, right. Me too.
So hi, I'm Taylor King. I graduated the evening MBA program. I think it was 2017. Back in 2017. So I've been in the biotech industry majority of my career. Right out the gates from my undergrad, I took a marketing internship at Life Technologies, which was acquired by Thermo Fisher, where I spent 8 glorious years. So Josh, thanks for the introduction into Thermo. I was there for 8 years, which was very, you know, rewarding work. I loved Thermo Fisher. And now most recently, about a year ago, I joined Singular Genomics. So I currently lead recruitment efforts at Singular Genomics. We are a publicly traded life science and technology company that leveraging novel next generation sequencing and multi-omic technologies to build products that empower researchers and clinicians. So we actually just fully commercialized our first product, which was really exciting. So our first product is a DNA sequencing platform. So very similar to the Ion Torrent platform by Thermo Fisher, or the plethora of different DNA sequencers from Alumni. We just launched our own sequencer, which is really exciting. So we're about 240 employees. So a kind of a major shift from coming from Thermo Fisher with what you said, Josh, about 100,000 employees now globally to now 240. So that was kind of a big transition, which was awesome. So my major focus now in my role is hiring top caliber talent to the organization across a variety of different positions. A large aspect of my job is a lot of project management as well. I received my MBA in project management from Point Loma. So basically utilizing my skills every day that I learned within the program, it's been an instrumental part of my success. So that's, you know, been a huge factor there. Like I mentioned, my entire career has really been in biotech and on the recruitment side. I've recruited for our interns and kind of the university relations, all through corporate functions to mid-level positions in finance, marketing, HR, science, engineering, all the way up to executive leadership. So I love being able to connect people to their dream jobs. This is a really exciting time to join this industry. It's very fast paced, it's innovating, it's at the forefront of truly changing lives across the entire world. And specifically with Singular Genomics, with the next generation sequencing, you know, that's used for a variety of different things. So that's early cancer detection, it's used for non-invasive prenatal testing, all the way to agriculture and, you know, making more productive and sustainable agriculture practices. So I'd say, if biotech is something that you're interested in and you don't have a science background, there's always, a plethora of jobs outside of just the technical components and the scientist bench work side. So I think, like we all mentioned, biotech companies need all the corporate functions: finance, manufacturing, HR, marketing, IT, even recruitment. So the main driver for me being in this industry and continuing to stay in this industry is being connected to the company's missions and really to accelerate, the innovation of science to make an impact on the world. So that kind of what keeps me, progressing and continuing to stay within the biotech space.
Gotta mute. I appreciate that, Taylor, and I appreciate you kind of articulating your why biotech, why synthetic genomics. So that is interesting, going from 100,000 to 243. You've got, let me just ask you really quick before I jump into this first question. At any given time, because you are the recruiter in this, how many recs do you think you're working on just at any given day? I know you typically.
It depends. So if you're working on like some of the lower level positions, more entry level, I'd say 60. If it's senior leadership, probably 15.
Wow.
Right now, my role is a mix of recruiting and projects, so I'd say about 10. But across the entire organization, I think right now we have 40 positions open. A company the size of Thermo, I mean, there's probably 8,000 jobs open.
Wow.
Yeah,
well, that's hopeful. That's hopeful for anybody actually looking to get into the space. So, so let's jump into this first question, then we'll throw it out and see if anybody has. So again, I want to thank all of you. Kind of different perspectives. I love that. 4 different companies that are all kind of tied together. But one of the questions we had right off the bat was, what advice do you have for someone who's looking to switch careers from even, say, healthcare? They're in the healthcare space right now in an MBA program, and they don't have a science background, but they want to switch to the biotech background. I guess what would be your best advice? What specific skill sets should they highlight? Just what would you look for in somebody looking to make that switch? And Taylor, let's just start with you. How about that?
Yeah, I'd say, you don't necessarily have to have a scientific background and worked in a science related industry to transition into biotech, especially if you are looking to make a switch into this industry. Just looking at what jobs are available, making sure that you have the minimum qualifications that they're looking for. And I'd say majority of people that I talk to that are making a switch into this industry, it's all about making connections and getting referrals and being able to have someone from the company that you're looking into and being able to get your resume in front of, the recruitment team. So it's always a lot of leveraging your network. I mean, like how Tyler mentioned how he, got into his role, and Josh as well back at when he transitioned into even Deloitte. It's all about leveraging your network. Who do you know that can, get your resume in front of a recruiter? Being able to apply for the positions that utilize your skill sets and being able to highlight that within your resume. As a recruiter, I certainly don't think that. I know kind of nowadays, but like cover letters, I always get a ton of information from cover letters of just, why people want to transition. If they have the skill sets that I'm looking for within a role, that they don't have any necessarily industry experience, but they have a cover letter explaining why they want to get into this industry. I truly do look at all of those and take those into consideration. So when you are applying for positions, I always would just include even on your resume, if you want to put like an objective of wanting to be within this industry for whatever reason and purpose yours is, I highly suggest doing that as well.
So maybe like a little executive summary attached,
even like on the top of your resume, if you have an objective of to secure a position within the biotech space because of X, Y, and Z, and kind of list your purposes of why you want to, be a part of this industry. Or, put that within your cover letter as well, saying, you want to transition your skill sets from, potentially a med device, background into more biotech. or even, you wanting to utilize, their skill set that you learned within a different industry, and how that's very translatable and transferable into this industry, into that role specifically you're applying for.
Awesome. Thanks, Taylor. Anybody else want to add to that, Tyler or Valeria or Josh?
Yeah, I agree. I think you can't see it as a liability just because you don't have a scientific background, because there's probably skill sets and value that you bring that the organization needs. That being said, I think there is probably a knowledge gap that you have. I mean, I certainly had, and it was on me to then go and make sure I was training myself and getting the training and finding out the information so that I could be intelligent about the products that I was supporting. And I think that probably the more you know about the science and the products, regardless of your position, will probably help you. But I don't think it's a prerequisite. So I would just make sure you don't see it as a liability, but do the homework to make sure you're intelligent about what you're going to be supporting.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, it's, for me at least, it was, as Taylor mentioned, it started with referral. So that's how I got into Quidel in the first place. And then actually how I, got, built some relationships, and then the hiring manager that moved from Quidel to Hologic brought me over. So that's kind of, my experience. And to just, I completely agree. At least when I first got the associate product manager role in marketing in a diagnostics company, I, basically pledged that I will work my tail off to do all the learnings on what I consider like my B time, right? Even just YouTubing videos of what, DNA versus RNA is, and diagnostics and molecular diagnostics and how it works, so that, you're doing that and you're reading publications, and ultimately having people that you can rely on, that you can ask maybe some dumb questions at the time, but totally agree with what they both said.
Awesome. Valeria, did you want to add, or?
Yeah, I think that it's important to know that you do not, like we have all said, you do not have to have a science background, and just making sure, which what I think helped me the most is just making sure that on your resume, you're covering all the points that are in the job description, and just try to make it as transferable as it is. Obviously, you're not gonna have, if you don't have experience in biotech, you might not necessarily know what they're purchasing, but like, for example, for me, but I do know how to purchase, I do know how to quote stuff, and just making sure that you clearly state on your resume how you would be an asset to the company, and not being afraid of applying for something just because you're not familiar. And like Tyler said, you do have to put a lot of work in it, and like just go the extra mile so you can at some point get, which is what I'm doing now, trying to get to that point where I know exactly what everybody's talking about, what all the products are, and how I am part of every project.
Wonderful. Thank you for that response. I have some more questions, but any other questions from anybody in the audience? Specific maybe to what they're looking to do? I just have to throw this out here. Michaela, have you met Valeria yet?
Not yet, but I'm also at Alumni, so.
Yes, Michaela is also at Illumina, so there you go. You two will have to commiserate over your MBA experience at Oklahoma. Yeah. I love it. Okay, well, I have a question, because you when you think about San Diego, a couple of different industries come to mind. You have, defense contracting, the microbrew, industry, and then the biotech industry. And it seems like the biotech industry is the hardest one. Like, there are barriers. That's just the myth, I think. I don't know if it's a myth or not, but it seems like there's barriers to entry into that space. And so I guess I would ask, is that true? Is it, are there other myths about the industry, the biotech industry, that just, you have to be the smartest person in the entire, to come work? They're all PhD. You can't work there without a PhD. Anybody want to respond to that?
I'll venture an answer, but I'd like to get Taylor's input on it, because my experience has been, the smaller the organization, the more technical the team tends to be. And this is kind of like a maturity curve. So if you're talking about small biotechs, like they're deep in their technology, they need functions that support the development of that technology sort of exclusively. And so I think in that sense, the barriers are probably higher. They don't necessarily maybe need like an MBA that just wants to talk to them about strategy or something. They really need scientists and engineers, et cetera, that can help support the technology. As the company grows and expands, they maybe have multiple or like a single product, a large platform on the market, like Taylor's organization. Then you start needing those additional functions that come in, and HR and legal and product management. And a lot of those don't necessarily require life science experience. In fact, in some of them, they're better served by people that have worked in other settings, that know how to do finance for large deals, or things like that, that can bring that value into the organization. So in that sense, I think the bar's even lower, because they're looking to bring in knowledge to the organization to support the technology that they spent so long developing. So I think there might be barriers that change depending on their sort of a life cycle of the biotech that's in question.
Taylor?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Josh, especially, now being at Singular for over a year now. I've seen such a heavy focus. I think I was employee 130, and now we've added, over 100 in just in the past year. So seeing a shift from a heavily R&D focused organization to now we have a product, and now we need to build out to the commercial side of the business as well as the manufacturing side of the business as well. So as that shift happens, when there's not such technical pieces of the business that we need to be able to grow and be successful, that's kind of where you see a little bit of a paradigm shift, where it's not necessarily, someone who has a technical background for instance, our digital marketing. We had a digital marketing position open, and we were able to bring someone in from Callaway who had no biotech experience, but just the creativity and the innovation that he was doing just from Callaway, and being able to have that translated to to the biotech industry and into next generation sequencing, that was a huge success. And being able to just again see that progression. So Josh really kind of hit the nail on the head here. As the smaller organizations, they're going to be a lot more technical, because they're building and developing different test kits or reagents, or even capital equipment like we do. And again, as you continue to grow and actually manufacture, that's a little bit, those larger companies are a little bit easier, I'd say, to get into. I'd also say it does take a special breed of person to want to be in this industry, because it is very fast paced. It is, there's always a new competitor coming onto market. So the pace is fast, but the work is just extraordinarily rewarding. And it's really awesome to be a part of companies like all of ours that are just very innovative and doing really meaningful work. So I think that's another aspect of kind of the profile, if you will, of people we're trying to find within, to fill our roles.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. I want to just throw in Sam's comment here. So because other than, I know, Taylor, you went right out of undergrad, for the most part, the rest of you don't have this biotech background. And I can speak to Josh. Josh has helped me try to get non-tech people in there. But have you been able to maybe try and break down some of those barriers for those of you who don't have that background? You come in and say, hey, why don't we look at this person? If you're in a hiring role, do you have the ability to help, I guess, not have non-science focused people break into that industry if that's what their desire is? I know that's putting a lot on you, but yeah.
No, we're hiring 7 people right now. I have no constraints that they have to be scientists. This is in marketing. So if you're interested in marketing, you have my information, or you can find me on LinkedIn. We're hiring right now. So yeah, our team is a blend of marketing background and science background. It's actually the blending of those disciplines that makes our team better. So we specifically recruit for people that do not have a scientific background. So at least that's my team. I know finance is similar. There's a lot of other functions that the relevance of life sciences is there's no relevance. It's like, do you know how to do this really, really well? This thing, whatever that thing is, legal, finance, HR. If so, we want you to benefit our organization with that knowledge. Might be harder as an entry-level position, but I mean, you got sales organizations that aren't looking for necessarily always for life science background. Sometimes they are. Sometimes there's inside sales positions that don't need it. But
Yeah, I think back office function, back office is back office, right? You know, if you can do financial analysis for a manufacturing firm in defense, right? What's the, yeah, so that's a great point, everybody. Anybody else want to add to that?
I mean, my team's the same way. We have a, you know, we're a very, very strengths-based organization. So we do a lot of, you know, strengths finders and all that. And instead of trying to kind of pigeonhole folks into like, hey, look, you're going to do this PM role and you're going to be responsible for this, and that product, we more so just kind of blend it in with their strengths. Some do have a science background, but, you know, the recent hire that I had, we were fortunate to steal him from the analytics side, but he's very analytics heavy. Which is just what, you know, what we needed in that role. So, you know, it's never a hard requirement. Personally, I feel like, you know, character over competence all day long. So, but, you know, it's hard to convey that in a resume. And that's why, you know, to Taylor's point, it's all about how can you leverage some of those, you know, connections that you have that can speak on your behalf and say, hey, you know what, this person's an awesome person. You should give him or her a chance.
Yeah. So do you think that's it? I mean, if there's not maybe one thing, obviously Callaway's a brand name. And so that's kind of an easy, if you've done marketing for Callaway as a brand name, bringing them in, that makes sense. Is there something that we look for specific to background, skill set, education that's going to make you say, oh yeah, I think I'm at least going to bring that person in? Or is it really, if one of my students wants to get into thermo, I'm going to have them inundate Josh, or if they want to get, you know, with LinkedIn connection requests. No, but is that it? Is it really that it's all about the connection?
I mean, I guess it would, you know, the hires that, so I have a team that reports to me from Marlboro and right outside Boston. And they don't have their experience. One of them came from an agency, like a marketing agency. And so have like really excellent project management skills, working with messaging and branding and booth design, things like that. Versus another guy that we hired out there, he came from, it was like a logistics trucking company. So it was just, you know, they just nailed it out of the park in terms of, and so he had a very good like numbers background, was very good at Excel spreadsheets and all that, that really made it, you know, and of course they stood out during the interview process. So I want to say, at least for us, of course, you know, when you look at like our competitors or companies that do similar things, it's kind of easy to say, oh, okay, like that, they're probably maybe have a higher likelihood, but I wouldn't say that that's a must have, I guess.
Okay. Taylor, did you want to?
Yeah, I'll add to, I mean, I think it really depends also on, you know, the company you're applying to. You know, for instance, you know, some of Josh's positions that he's hiring for, there might be 300 applicants and you might be the perfect fit. But the first, you know, batch that the recruiter is looking at, there could be someone who's great fit that we move through the process and we never even look at your resume. So being able to leveraging your network, getting your resume in front of the recruiter is, you know, paramount for us to be able to, you know, see your profile and that you're interested in the position. Because again, large companies like Thermo, I mean, I was having, you know, a plethora of candidates I wouldn't even be able to look at because we're moving people through the pipeline based on looking at internal applications first, and then looking at referrals kind of as a second tier. And then it's basically, you know, the kind of first come, first serve of looking at resumes from an applicant standpoint. So again, you know, there might be being able to be within that batch of the first 25 to 50 people that you look at. But again, if there's 300 people applying to that position, from a recruitment standpoint, the recruiter might not even see your resume come through if we already moved someone through the process. So leveraging your network and being able to have someone get your profile in front of the right people is a huge, I'd say, driver to be able to get seen and be considered for a position.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that, all of that, Taylor, because I don't think people realize, I think they think that if I just submit my resume through whatever, the website or LinkedIn or Indeed, whatever, ZipRecruiter, that, oh, of course they're going to get back to me and, you know, yeah, at least they'll send me, you know, a no response. And that's just not, when you've got a 300, 400, 500 recs, you're going to try and get the quickest response possible in it. And you just may not be seen.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things that we want to get the best caliber of talent into the organization. And again, I think it's also just a mix of volume, but also again, finding the right, type of profile that we're looking for. So if someone comes in and they're, a 10 out of 10, but you could be a 10 out of 10 as well, then you can, we're getting that person through the process. They interview, they get the job. So it's a timing perspective, and that's why, again, leveraging your network and being able to get your resume seen into the hands of the right people is always a huge added benefit.
Okay. How do you define, Sam, I had one other follow-up. How do you define the best talent? What does that mean to you?
From a recruitment standpoint, matching your skill set to the skills that are needed within the job description. I also think that's a huge benefit of, when, even for myself, when I'm applying for positions, I look at the job requirements and tailor my resume for every single position that I apply for, and being able to make whatever skills that I have translatable to exactly what they're looking for, and making sure that, keywords that they're listing in the job description, making sure those are captured within my resume, making sure that if they're looking for a specific, skill set for this role to do, making sure that's highlighted within my experience. So every single job that I've ever applied to, I have a completely different resume for each of those positions, and really tailoring it to make it seem like my background is exactly what is needed for this role, and that my background is translatable to what that organization is looking for.
That's great advice.
Fit. Yeah, I think
Go
it's
ahead, Josh.
Yeah, for us, it's fit. Like the 7 open roles we have right now, they're all marketing, but they're all completely different because we're looking for different things. One, we're looking for this person, we need him to be more senior. We need this kind of experience here. We want someone that's a little bit more analytical. We want someone that's completely just fresh out of college, never had a marketing job in their life. So, and then for us, a lot of it's not just the quals of the job rec, but are they going to work well on our team? Do they have the same spirit that our team has, like the humility, we're willing to work with others, like the team first mentality, take the initiative, or they just want to kind of sit back and be told what to do? And, so there's a lot of it that's cultural for us, that's a fit. So it's not just like a skills thing, like, hey, you got all the skills, you're on the team. There's a lot of it that's assessing like the fit that they're going to be in the organization. Is this going to be good for them? Like, are they going from a really small shop to like a really big shop? Is this going to like really be difficult for them for, a year, and they've got some life changes? We just heard that they had a kid. Like, you're trying to assess whether bringing this person into your organization is going to be good for you and good for them. So it's more like a dating relationship, like who's the ideal person to marry? The one that's the best fit, and you got to just choose it, and you got to see if it's going to work.
Thanks for that response, Josh. I want to be mindful of your time. I do have one additional question. A couple of people wanted to know just kind of what the future. It's funny. I think about. I was just in Austin a few months ago, and I look at how Austin is now the tech center of the country. Everybody from Silicon Valley, everybody from Mountain View is now moving out to Central Texas, and I don't know. I think about the biotech industry. It really is like it's San Diego's, but then I hear these companies in Boston. I hear, companies moving to Ireland, and, what is the future? What is the future for big companies like Thermo and, and Illumina and what are Hologic and some of the smaller companies? I mean, is San Diego always going to be the hub for biotech? Do you see that? I guess just kind of walk us through what you think the future is. Is it gonna grow? Is it gonna be impacted by, California's economy?
I can start. I'd say from a biotech perspective, there's always been kind of 3 major hubs. There's San Diego, there's the Bay Area, and then there's the greater Boston area. So we're in a major hub, and it's been these 3 kind of major hubs within the US for quite some time. I don't foresee that necessarily, changing. But again, as you mentioned, there's, a lot of people moving headquarters. And I think now after COVID, there's a lot more opportunity for a lot of hybrid and virtual work as well. So I don't think that, wherever kind of these biotech hubs remain, that would, make a huge impact from, a San Diego standpoint, because there is so much opportunity now for virtual work as well.
Awesome, Taylor, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, for us here, we as you can see, I'm in the office during the heart of COVID. We had to be in every day. Not we had to be, but just to get the work done, to get all the COVID tests out to the world. Certainly that's changed, where especially when we're hiring, right? People are saying, no, I want to be 100% remote. I don't want to have to go in the office. Not that we have it like you got to be here, 5 days a week, but 2-3 days a week. We do emphasize the people to person interaction. I'd say the future, I think for our perspective, from a marketplace perspective, it is going to be a lot more what we call decentralized, right? So instead of having these huge labs like Quest and LabCorp, they'll obviously continue to do their thing, but more, especially with COVID, kind of point of care type instruments that will be, in place at your local kind of urgent care, things like that, to take care of some of these things. So, and in terms of San Diego, I feel like it's such a strong foundation with UCSD, Point Loma, SDSU. I don't think that's going to change. I mean, it may in the future, but I mean, it's still going to be years before that happens. So I think you're still always going to have a strong foundation here in San Diego, no matter what.
Yeah, we should root for the Hologics and the Singulars and others to be successful. That's the challenge for San Diego, is the big ones end up getting brought back to the East Coast, or like Taylor said, up to San Francisco, Medtronic, Roche, and all this. We want big biotechs like Illumina to be successful and then stay here. So that's why I love seeing all the other success that we've had recently. Is that's good for our economy. That's good for North County, good for Southern California. The challenge is typically in the past, when they get big enough, they just get bought up and dragged somewhere else. So, but that stickiness that Tyler talked about is good. And you got Alexander Real Estate just pouring money into like new lab space all over San Diego. So like, that reflects a level of investment that they're expecting, that those labs are filled, and that's going to draw, you kind of continue to keep that talent here. So that's good.
Yeah. Valeria, do you want to add to that?
I mean, just from what I've known, I don't think that they're going anywhere. We're staying in San Diego. The biotech industry is really big here. And now with the opportunities they are giving us as working hybrid, remote for certain positions where you don't have to be in the office, it's really making it more powerful, and also opening the pool of good employees.
Yeah. Just one more quick, the biotech future question. So it seems like everybody moved towards COVID testing, right? I don't know if that's where the money was, or if that's what was dictated by the federal government, whatever, and so I guess, has your customer changed? Is your customer changing? Do you see more of this? Because it's going to be around. I mean, we know that it's so has it changed your business a lot?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, for us, it's completely changed our business, where we are players in the rest. So previously, as I mentioned, we're a women's health company, and we typically competed in the chlamydia, gonorrhea, trick, HPV space. But with COVID, we are now a big player in the respiratory world. So it certainly flipped our world upside down. We didn't really have a choice, as you can imagine, when this first started. We are still today on the White House task force to deliver tests, and we had governors calling us from all different states and all that. So unfortunately, we didn't have a choice in certain aspects, but it was okay because our core business was down. But now that they're both back, it's we're having to make trade-offs. Do we build a chlamydia, gonorrhea test, or do we build a COVID test? So there's certainly some issues there. I would say for us, we molecular diagnostics has traditionally been where there's multiple platforms, maybe 6 or 7 different, instruments that do a variety of different things. But that pre-COVID, everything that, was getting consolidated onto a single platform. Now, I still think that the consolidation is happening, but the laboratories around the globe are saying, I'm not going to have just one partner. I'm not going to have 6, but I'm not going to have 1 either. I'm probably going to have 2. And so it becomes a big competitive dynamic where we have been fortunate we have about almost 2,000 Panthers now across the U.S. We're now in labs that traditionally have never allowed us to be in, but on the same token, on the flip side, there are our competitors' instruments that are in labs that that typically, love us and have been with us for years. So it'll be really interesting on how the everything kind of unfolds over here, especially with, new paradigms like telehealth. How do we incorporate more at-home sampling or even at-home testing, and leveraging, new technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning to be able to provide more value-based care, personalized care. I think COVID has just expedited all that, and now it's just, I mean, I know everybody knows that's kind of like duh, but I think that the organization that can take, like, it's evident that it needs to get there. The how and we get there, and whoever can figure that out the quickest, I think is going to make a huge or seize the opportunity here in the next coming years.
Yeah, I don't think anybody realized Q Health is another San Diego-based company that also had a Super Bowl commercial that probably nobody was like, what is that? And so, hopefully it's growing. Josh, did you want to add anything to that? Just because obviously Thermo did a lot of COVID.
Yeah, we did it. I'll send a little video in the chat here. It kind of is it's a way of like what it looks like from the inside as a business response, kind of like what Tyler was talking about to COVID. I think the good news is, like, a recipient of healthcare is that, as Tyler mentioned, it democratized molecular-based testing, where it's now in labs all over the world, that they brought in instrumentation and capabilities and trained up staff that before was sort of niche. It was over in some area, but not in theirs. Now it's in labs all over the world. That capability can be turned on for cancer diagnostics. It can be turned for early detection of all types of cancers, other infectious diseases, as Tyler's talking about. So my hope and prayer for all of us is that the medical infrastructure that was developed as a result of COVID is used now and continues to be used to accelerate testing for all kinds of other diseases that can help all of us, be healthier and safer.
Got the, so if somebody wants to copy that. I want to, again, thank all of you for being here. Such great insight. I want to make sure it's okay for students to connect with you on LinkedIn with that. Is that okay? If they're interested?
Of course.
Thank you so much. Such a great insight into, again, it's San Diego. When you think of, all the brand name biotech firms here in San Diego, hopefully things will continue to grow. So thank you for your time, everybody. We'll have this posted if you want to rewatch it. If anybody missed it, you can let them know. We'll have it posted. And again,